Good morning and welcome to The Big Story on Quest Television. The Big Story is a program where we talk about sensitive issues as we bring solutions to them. This morning, we'll be looking at the role of trade unions in economic advocacy in Nigeria. My name is Silas Mchadam. Welcome to the program. The ongoing depreciation of Naira has led to significant economic challenges in Nigeria, particularly in the telecommunications sector, where tariffs have surged by 50%. As first as the civil president of the Trade Union Congress, TUC, aptly noted, if you know what the root cause of the problem is, why would you start looking at the symptoms? This speaks to the philosophical insight of Heraclitus, who says that change is the only constant thing in life. Historically, Nigeria's dependence on oil has made it susceptible for foreign markets to thrive. Now, this has been a situation in Nigeria where a lot of people are going through situations that are unpredictable. So fluctuations exacerbating the impacts of currency devaluation. The lessons learned from Zimbabwe's hyperinflation remind us of the urgent need to understand the economic dynamics, not just as members on financial report, but as real issues affecting everyday citizens in Nigeria. Now, we are going to analyze the effects of foreign exchange fluctuations and also to see how trade unions groups in Nigeria can also influence decisions and also, call government to account on some of the things that happened in Nigeria. Now, to join us today, we're anticipating the chairman of Trade Union Congress of Delta State, Nigeria, Delta State Council. We're talking about Comrade Bulu Martins Mwachukwu JP, who will be joining us in the course of our discussion today to have insight about what we are going to talk about today. And also remember that the story about the IPPIS in Nigeria, this has been a lot of situations where, labor force in Nigeria were thrown into living with this condition of either deciding strike actions, and this is not too good for Nigeria. Now, as we continue to converse through some of these processes, we'll bring a lot of the challenges that we have there. Now, remember that the discontinuation of, talking about civil servants in Nigeria, this has actually been a situation that I want us to brush a little about this situation. Now, if we have the other publication of the newspapers yesterday, we have this story to say that the federal civil servants have been given in February 17, 2025 as deadline, to identify verification as the government moves to weed out ghost workers in Nigeria. You know that we have a lot of ghost workers in Nigeria, although they are not dead, but we still have ghost workers actually, where somebody will be collecting money in a place where it's not working, where dead persons, people who are already dead, are still receiving salaries, and some people who are not recognized by the payroll of the federal government are also receiving salaries. And so the coin has been ghost workers in Nigeria. So that has been the situation. Now, this was contained in the memo by the office of the Accountant General of the Federation of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, cited by our correspondents on Saturday. Now, civil servants are expected to verify the identities on the portal of the Integrated Payroll and Personal Information System, IPPIS. Remember that the last time we had this here, we were using the NUC. I think that was the national, as we talk about it, we'll continue to reflect more. So the people in the government who are working there were refusing, that they do not want to be paid using the IPPIS. And so the federal government is saying we need to document and have your identities properly, so we'll be able to have, pay people who really deserve the payment. He said that the civil servants are expected to verify the identities on the portal of the Integrated Payroll and Personal Information System, IPPIS, amidst the planned stoppage of salaries and other sanctions meted out on ghost workers in Nigeria. So this also is trying to see how the right people receive salaries for the jobs they are doing. And I think is what administration of President Bola Tinubu is trying to bring into effort, to try to see that people who work for Nigeria, people who collect salaries as Nigerian workers, should be those who are really, really working into Nigerian government. And so I think this also has a good impact for Nigeria, as those who work will receive salaries for the work they are having, as we continue to move forward there. Now, it was gathered that the civil servants have been in haste to generate the taxpayers' identification number to meet the deadline. And so some persons who did not want to be involved into the process now were later informed about the situation. And so right now they're trying to see how we can have the identities of those who are working for the federal government of Nigeria. And so we're trying to see how this now becomes a positive change of Nigeria as we call to account some of these people that will be identified as legitimate workers in Nigeria. Now remember, today we're looking at the role of trade unions in economic advocacy in Nigeria. Like I told us before, we have in the studio here the chairman of Trade Union Congress of Nigeria, the Council of Delta State Nigeria. I'm talking about Comrade Bulu Martins Nwachuku JP, who has joined us this morning. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, my brother.
You're welcome.
Good morning, viewers.
All right. I just called this name Bulu Martins Nwachuku. I don't know if I get that right.
You are correct.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Now, let's try to move forward now as we begin with the first question of our discussion today. How can trade unions effectively advocate a living wage that meets the basic needs of workers in Nigeria?
That is the big question. What first we have to determine what's the living wage.
Okay.
And determine what is a minimum wage. Because there's this confusion around the people thinking that once we get a minimum wage, that answers the issue of living wage. Yeah. The economic situation of Nigeria today makes it difficult for anyone to actually ask for a living wage. Because a living wage means what can meet your needs, basic needs. I don't mean your wants. There is a great difference between wants and needs. Okay. Basic needs. What we have today as a minimum wage or payment salaries and wages cannot take any worker home. For example, the minimum wage was just passed and everybody clapped. But as soon as it was passed, things that overtook the minimum wage came on board immediately. The pump price kept increasing, taxes, so many things that called for the money. Then it just evaporated even before we started receiving it. Yeah. But a minimum wage is what the law recognizes. We talk about minimum wage, but the living wage is a different thing altogether. Okay. A living wage is that which can comfortably meet your basic needs of housing, transportation, medicals, and so on. You're able to go to the market, get basic food items, eat at least 2 or 3 times a day. That is a living wage that can help you live. We have not been able to get that in this country, and even everywhere in the world is difficult, but it's attainable. So how can the labor unions advocate for living wage? We have always advocated for that. Actually, when we talk of living wage, they take us back to minimum wage, looking at what we can do and what we cannot do. But it's the job of the labor unions to ask for a living wage. And that is why we say the economic situation of the country is too hard. Each time you hear us talk about harsh economic situation, we're looking at the living wage. We're looking at what can take our people home, what can sustain the high cost of school fees, what can sustain the high cost of feeding, what can sustain the high cost of transportation, and so on. You can name so many of them. Yeah. The economic situation of Nigeria is serious.
Okay. Now, do you think that Nigeria has the powers to implement living wage instead of minimum wage, if it wants?
Yes and no. To implement a living wage, first you have to determine what the living wage is. Yeah. Do we have the power? Economic powers at this point in time? I will tell you no. Okay. Because the economy is such that every sector of the economy is struggling. For us to look at a living wage, we'll be looking at something very high that can meet these needs. Even the rich in this country are crying. The poor no longer cry. They don't have voice to cry anymore. It's even the rich that is crying. Everybody is trying to manage. Every day things get worse. The cost of exchange from dollar to naira is high there. going beyond 1,500 naira, it means things are expensive. What do we produce? We are not producing. So for us to look at the minimum wage, we have to fix our economy first. We have to be able to produce for ourselves, at least for local consumption. Even petroleum products, look at, we're still battling with between Dangote and Port Harcourt Refinery and then NPCL trying to get products. We're still importing fuel. So how do we talk of a living wage? Because anything you put up as wage is consumed. That is the truth. Our factories are not surviving. We are not manufacturing. And that is the problem. So for us to talk of a living wage, first, we have to set the conducive environment, manufacture what we consume, go back to the farm, producing. We're having security, battling with our food production even. We have a lot of issues. Even the power supply is not steady. Everything you pay for. So how do we talk of living wage? So Nigeria cannot, for now, pay a living wage, but we can work towards it. We put things in place and we can get it.
Okay, wow. So Nigeria does not have the powers just yet, but we can work towards it. That is a good summation there. Now, this taking me to the next question now. What are the potential impacts of proposed minimum wage increases on small businesses and the ability to sustain operation? If you look this now, this is not just talking about the government-owned institutions, or other states or local, this is states or federal or component units. No, we're talking about even small-scale businesses. What impact does this have on them? Can they sustain this, or this should only be limited to the government-owned ones, or maybe we can have private institutions also implementing minimum wage, and how this may impact them?
Beautiful. A minimum wage is a law.
Okay.
It's not for government workers alone. When you say minimum wage, you mean what any business, anybody can pay a worker working under you. The law says that if somebody is working, if you have up to 10 persons at least in a company or a small business, you must obey the law of the minimum wage. And the minimum wage is that you pay nothing less than 70,000 naira to the person. Yes, a little thing. The impact is huge, whether you like it or not. When there is more money in the hands of the workers, the small businesses grow. I told somebody, when you earn the 70,000 naira minimum wage, it empowers people to invest more. And who are the owners of these small businesses? It's still the same workers and some smaller persons. Yes, when there is more money, people have more purchasing power. The business improves. Then these small businesses too must also sustain their own workers. So minimum wage is not for government workers alone. It's for all businesses, all workers. When we talk of workers, we are not talking of civil servants or public servants alone. We meet all workers everywhere in the country. So the impact must be felt, and is actually being felt. By the time minimum wage was paid in Delta State, you saw that the weather became calmer a little. The stress relieved a little, and we're getting used to it, even though things also started coming up. It's called the small businesses increasing their costs, landlords increase rent, this one increase this one. It's as an effect of that. Because there is a little more money in circulation, it has to go around. Nobody collects money and eat it directly. You must buy. When your purchasing power increases, it affects your neighbor who is selling. So it goes round. It's an economic factor that must affect everybody.
Wow, okay. Which means that if we have somebody who sells apple, for instance, in the market, and she or he has a sales girl or sales boy, that means that the little amount of money that that person will be able to pay that person should be from 70,000 naira and above.
Yes.
So that will also now, don't you think that will have a way of impacting the prices that they sell commodities, and then in turn this will also bring back the suffering back to Nigerians, you know?
No, I don't think so. Whether he pays 70,000 or not, the price of commodity is determined by so many things.
Okay.
It's determined, one, the price at which you get the production. Two, the ability to pay. the law of demand and supply.
Yeah.
3, labor that you put in, which we are talking about, the salaries you pay. Transportation, how you get it, it matters. So all these factors are there to determine the cost of these things. First, in Nigeria, there is high cost of living. So for you to sell apple, you have to process it. You may not necessarily be the farmer. And the farmer will have to increase the cost of the cassava selling to you, because the cost of labor at producing the cassava has increased, and the farmer will need to buy fish, the farmer will need to buy oil, the farmer will need to send the children to school, the school fees have increased. So these are the things that affect the cost of one wrap of apple that you see. You think it is small, but it affects it, because that person selling apple will also pay transport.
To go get those commodities,
Yes, we'll have to go through all these things. And the children are in school. So when you put all these things together, it affects. So it's not just because there is an increase in minimum wage. And the positive effect of the increase in minimum wage is that those who eat apple, now who are workers, have a little more money to afford the apple, so they can now buy. So you are able to sell. So that's the positive aspect of it. So it's a chain. So a lot of things contribute to that.